Refused to host Christmas because my family uses my house as a free hotel. They laughed and came for 2 weeks with bags and kids. 20 people in total. So I didn't open the door for them and enjoyed their screams. I'm Megan, and 3 years ago I bought a country house that looked perfect, quiet, near amazing ski slopes, and ideal for my remote app development work. I've never been a social butterfly. In fact, I was always the quiet one in my family. My older brother Dave, the athletic one, married his high school sweetheart Lisa, and they have 2 kids, Tommy, 8, and Emma, 6. My younger sister Rachel, always the popular one, married her college boyfriend Mark, and they have a 4-year-old daughter named Lily. My retired parents still manage everyone's lives like they used to when we were kids. When I told them about my new house, their eyes lit up, and I instantly regretted it. A house near the ski slopes? Perfect. You should host Christmas here this year. Mom clapped her hands as if she'd solved a huge problem. I don't know, I mumbled, fidgeting with my coffee mug. It's not that big, and I'm not really set up for entertaining. Dad added. It'll be good for you. You spend too much time alone with your computer. Dave agreed. The kids would love to go skiing. Come on, Meg, it'll be fun. After a few weeks of mulling it over, I reluctantly agreed, thinking it would be just this one time. As Christmas neared, I worked extra hours to stay ahead on my projects. The holiday season is one of the busiest times for me, with everyone scrambling to get their apps ready for the December rush of phone gifts and downloads. The more the holiday approached, the more I realized I wouldn't have time to cook the massive feast Mom expected. So I called the best local restaurant and ordered their holiday package: turkey, ham, sides, desserts, everything. It cost a fortune, but it saved me the stress of cooking while I was swamped with work. When my family pulled up, it was like watching a clown car unload. Bags, presents, ski equipment, and a swarm of noisy kids. Mom rushed over and hugged me tightly. Oh, Megan, this place is gorgeous. I can't believe you live here all by yourself. I smiled, already feeling my introvert alarms go off. Thanks, Mom. Let me give you a quick tour. In about 5 minutes, I showed them around. It wasn't a mansion, just a modest 3-bedroom house. I'd converted one room into my office, meaning most of you would have to sleep on air mattresses or pull-out couches. Where's the Christmas dinner? Mom asked, peeking into my kitchen. Don't tell me you haven't started cooking yet? I explained. Actually, I ordered everything from Pine Valley Restaurant. They're delivering it tomorrow morning. Her face fell dramatically, as if I just canceled Christmas entirely. Restaurant food for Christmas? Megan, you're always so busy. A good hostess would have made time. I bit my tongue. There was no arguing. She never understood my career, always treating it like a hobby instead of a real job. Surprisingly, dinner went better than expected. Despite Mom's disapproval, everyone enjoyed the restaurant meal. We exchanged gifts after dinner. I had spent weeks picking out the perfect presents. The latest gaming system for Dave, a designer purse for Lisa, artwork for Rachel and Mark, toys for the kids, and a weekend getaway for my parents. In return, I got a scarf from Rachel, socks from Dave and Lisa, and a World's Best Aunt coffee mug from my parents. They all pitched in together, Mom explained, because they thought it was more meaningful that way. I smiled and thanked them, even though their gifts cost a fraction of what I'd spent. But the days after Christmas were pure chaos. A blur of noise, mess, and non-stop activity. The kids turned my house into their playground, racing up and down the stairs, spilling drinks on my rugs, and leaving toys everywhere. Meanwhile, the adults went skiing all day and came back expecting more restaurant meals, which I kept paying for without complaint. Not once did anyone offer to help clean up the dishes piled in the sink, or the wet towels on the bathroom floor. Every night, once everyone was asleep, I would quietly tidy up just enough to keep my sanity. One morning, Dad announced, Megan, we're out of coffee. While I was squeezing in an hour of work. There's a grocery store 10 minutes away, I replied without looking up. But we don't really know the area, he grumbled, and we all got ready to go skiing. I glanced at him in his new ski pants, which I'd bought him for Christmas, and said, I'll grab some after I finish this section. He insisted we have coffee together before heading out. So I closed my laptop, dressed up, and drove to the store while everyone else continued preparing for their day of fun. By New Year's Eve, I was exhausted and behind on work. I hadn't had a minute to myself in a week, and my bank account was reeling from feeding 9 people with restaurant meals every day. This has been so wonderful, Mom declared as we clinked glasses at midnight. We should do this every year. I nearly choked on my champagne. The next morning, they packed up to leave. No one even stripped a bed or washed a dish. They hugged me goodbye, thanked me for everything, and drove off, leaving my house looking like it had been hit by a tornado. A year passed quickly. My work kept me busy, and I was grateful for the peace and quiet of my house. Mom and Dad would call occasionally, usually on holidays or my birthday, but they never mentioned Christmas again. I even hoped they'd forgotten about making it a tradition. That hope was shattered exactly 2 weeks before Christmas when my phone rang. Mom called in her extra cheerful voice to announce they were all coming back for Christmas. My stomach dropped immediately, but before I could protest, she hung up. I spent the next few days weighing my options, but in the end I did what I always did. I started preparing for their arrival. I cleared my schedule, stocked the refrigerator, and braced myself for another week of chaos. What I wasn't ready for was a text I received a full week before I expected them, saying they had just left and would be at my place by dinner. I nearly dropped my coffee mug. I called Mom immediately to confirm. She explained that the kids got out of school early, and everyone managed to get extra time off work. When I mentioned I thought they were coming on the 23rd, she acted like the change was a blessing, a complete disruption to my work schedule. 7 hours later, my driveway was once again packed with cars and my house was filled with noise. Mom burst through the door first, giving me a quick hug before immediately complaining that I hadn't decorated yet. I explained that I planned to decorate that weekend since I wasn't expecting them until the following week, but she waved it off and said it was great they were early to help. The help turned out to be Mom bossing me around while she supervised from the couch. Meanwhile, the kids made themselves at home, pulling out toys and games and spreading them all over my freshly vacuumed floor. Soon after, Mom announced there was nothing to eat. I reminded her I wasn't expecting them until the next week and offered to cook in an hour, but she insisted on ordering from the expensive restaurant we'd used last year. I reluctantly handed over my credit card, knowing I'd regret it later. "It's just the essentials," she said, patting my cheek like I was still a kid. "Don't worry about money during the holidays. Family is what matters." 2 hours later, she returned with bags of prepared meals from the gourmet section, 3 pricey bottles of wine, and a receipt that made me wince. "Mom, this is way more than we need. When I'm on vacation, I like to relax," I said. "Besides, I never get a break at home. There's always so much cooking and cleaning to do," she replied. Christmas morning came, and once again I had ordered a full holiday meal from Pine Valley Restaurant. It cost even more this year, but watching my family's faces light up as they dug in almost made it worth it. After dinner, we had our gift exchange. I'd spent weeks picking out perfect gifts. A drone for Dave he'd been eyeing for months, designer winter boots for Lisa, a spa package for Rachel, a high-end watch for Mark, and toys the kids had specifically asked for, plus a weekend luxury mountain resort package for my parents. When it was my turn to open gifts, they handed me a medium-sized box from all of them. Inside was a coffee maker, not high-end, just the kind you'd find on sale at any department store, with a price tag still partly visible. Rachel explained they'd all chipped in because they knew how much I loved coffee. I forced a smile and thanked them, holding back the urge to point out that I already had a perfectly good coffee maker that they'd been using all week, and that their gift was worth less than a tenth of what I'd spent on everyone else that evening. After everyone settled in the living room, I ended up cleaning the kitchen alone. The sink was piled high with dishes and food spills covered the counters. I had been cleaning for nearly an hour when Rachel walked in to grab another glass of wine. "This place is a mess," she commented, glancing around. "Yeah," I agreed, silently hoping she'd offer to help instead. Instead, she filled her glass and said, "Moms, I'm Megan. 3 years ago, I bought a country house in a quiet area near amazing ski slopes. Perfect for me since I work remotely as an app developer and have never been much of a social butterfly. Growing up, I was always the quiet one in our family. My older brother Dave, the athletic type, married his high school sweetheart Lisa, and they have 2 kids, Tommy, 8, and Emma, 6. My younger sister Rachel, the social butterfly, married her college boyfriend Mark, and they have a 4-year-old daughter Lily. Meanwhile, my retired parents still try to run our lives like they did when we were kids. When I announced my new house, their eyes lit up. "A house near the ski slopes? Perfect. You should host Christmas here this year." Mom clapped her hands as if she'd solved a major problem. I hesitated. "I don't know. It's not huge, and I'm not really set up for entertaining," Dad added. "It'll be good for you. You spend too much time alone with your computer." Dave nodded. "The kids would love skiing. Come on, Meg, it'll be fun." After a few weeks of wrestling with the idea, I reluctantly agreed. I figured one Christmas couldn't be too bad. It might even be nice to have the house filled with people for once. But things quickly went off track. The day after we arrived, while I was drying my hands on a towel, someone asked if there was any chocolate cake left from yesterday. I turned to Rachel and said, "Would you mind helping me with these dishes? There's so much, and I've been cleaning up all week." She looked genuinely surprised. "Seriously? I'm on vacation, Megan. The kids are finally settled watching a movie." "I'm on vacation too," I replied. "At least I'm supposed to be, but I've been working, cleaning, and paying for everything." She rolled her eyes. "It's your house. You can't expect guests to clean." I countered. "I expect family to pitch in, especially when they invite themselves." Rachel's face hardened. "I'll go get Mom." Minutes later, both Mom and Rachel returned fuming. Mom took Rachel's side, insisting that we shouldn't clean on vacation and hinting that if I didn't want to host, I shouldn't have invited everyone. New Year's Day came, and I was counting down the hours until they'd finally leave. But at dinner, Dad announced they'd been having such a great time that they'd arranged to extend their stay for another 2 weeks. I was stunned. "This isn't what we planned. I have work and deadlines," I protested. Mom dismissed my concerns. "You should be happy to have family around longer. Besides, making phone games isn't as important as family." The next 2 weeks were a nightmare. Mom kept demanding extra cash for food, insisting that on vacation they deserved only the best. Dad spent most of his time skiing, returning only to eat and sleep. Dave and Rachel barely kept an eye on the kids, who grew increasingly restless from being cooped up. My work suffered terribly. I tried explaining that I needed quiet time to code, but they treated my job like some casual hobby that could be set aside for their fun. One particularly stressful day my boss called. "Megan, is everything okay? You haven't been responding to emails and the client is getting anxious about the timeline." I locked myself in the bathroom, the only quiet spot in the house, and apologized. "I'm sorry, Jack. I've had some family issues. I promise I'll get back on track by Friday." That meant pulling all-nighters after everyone went to bed. That very evening, as I worked frantically in my office, the door swung open. I spun around to see my nephew Tommy reaching for my mouse. "Can we play a game?" he asked. "No," I snapped, jumping up. "This is my work computer. It has important files. If they mess with it, I could lose weeks of work." Emma whimpered. "Where are your parents?" I replied. "Mom said to find something quiet to do." Tommy, still eyeing my computer, mumbled, "But we're bored." I took a deep breath. "This isn't a place for kids to play. Please go find your mom and tell her you need supervision." Reluctantly, they left and I locked the door. About 15 minutes later, there was a loud knock. I opened the door to find Rachel standing there with both kids looking annoyed. "You yelled at them," they accused. "I didn't yell," I defended. "I told them they can't play with my work computer. It has all my projects on it. If they accidentally delete something or download a virus, I could lose weeks of work." Rachel rolled her eyes. "You're being dramatic. They just wanted to play," I suggested. "Maybe set them up with a game in the living room or take them outside, or have someone watch them instead of bothering me while I work." Her face hardened. "You know, Megan, this is why you're alone. You have no idea what it's like to be a parent. We can't just lock ourselves away when things get inconvenient." I snapped back. "No, you just dump your kids on other people and call it a vacation." Rachel's mouth fell open. "Wow, just wow." She turned and marched away with the kids. I knew I'd regret that comment later, but in the moment my frustration got the better of me. At dinner that night, it turned out Rachel had shared our argument with everyone. The table was uncomfortably quiet until Mom broke the silence. "Megan, Rachel told us what you said today. I think you owe her an apology. She works so hard as a mom, and to suggest she isn't doing her job." "I didn't say that," I interrupted. "I said she shouldn't expect me to babysit while I work. You don't understand how exhausting it is." Rachel fired back. "You have no responsibilities except for yourself." I scanned the table. "No responsibilities? I'm responsible for this house, my career, and apparently feeding and housing all of you for a month without any help." Rachel scoffed, making air quotes. "You're just bitter because you're alone." The room fell silent again. I looked around at my family. Nobody defended me. Finally, in a quiet voice, I said, "I don't know what it's like to be a parent, but you don't know what it's like to have your home invaded for a month, to be expected to pay for everything, clean up after everyone, and have your work dismissed as unimportant." I stood up. "I'm going to work now. There are leftovers in the fridge if anyone's still hungry." I spent the rest of the evening holed up in my office, the sounds of the TV and occasional laughter drifting in. Part of me longed to be the fun aunt and sister they wanted me to be, but another part just counted down the minutes until I could have my peace and quiet again. When their extended stay finally ended, I stood on the porch as they loaded their cars. A mix of relief and sadness washing over me. Despite everything, they were still my family. Mom hugged me as the last one left. "It's been wonderful, Megan, though you could have been more hospitable. We're all a bit disappointed in how you acted." I pulled back, stunned and disappointed with myself. Well, yes, the complaints about cleaning, not wanting to spend time with the kids. We're family, and family supports each other. I opened my mouth to argue, then closed it again. There was no point. They'd never understand my side. "Have a safe trip home," I said instead. I didn't wave. They drove off and I went back inside, closed the door and leaned against it. The silence was golden. I could even hear the kitchen clock ticking. Life without the constant family drama was pretty sweet. My work flourished, I received a substantial raise, and finally I had the quiet I craved. But 2 months before Christmas, my social media notifications exploded. It was Rachel posting photos of her kids on skis with the caption, "Getting ready for our annual Christmas ski trip at Aunt Megan's." My heart pounded as I scrolled through comments. My immediate family was planning their annual invasion, and even other relatives were chiming in. "Can't wait to join you all this year. Save room for us. Best Christmas tradition ever." With shaking hands, I called Mom. "We need to talk about Christmas." She answered, sounding thrilled. "Oh, Megan, I was just about to call you. I have such exciting news. Everyone had a wonderful time at your place last year. And I mentioned it at Cousin Jen's wedding. Now the whole family wants to come. Not just us, but Uncle Steve, Aunt Laura, their kids, Grandma Betty, and your cousins from Dad's side. That's about 20 people in total. Isn't that wonderful?" Before I could respond, she hung up. Fury built inside me. Without thinking, I opened my social media account and typed a public service announcement. I am not hosting any family members at my house this Christmas. I repeat, and no one is invited to my house for the holidays. Make other plans. I posted it, turned off my phone, and went for a long hike to clear my head. When I returned, I checked my notifications and was shocked. Instead of angry responses, my family commented with laughing emojis and messages like, "Good one, Meg. Classic Megan humor. See you in December." They thought I was joking. That was when I made my decision. If they wouldn't listen to my words, they'd have to learn from my actions. I went to the grocery store and stocked up on enough food and wine to last me through the holidays. Then I called a security company and had cameras installed around my property. I even notified my neighbors about the situation. Sure enough, exactly 1 week before Christmas, a caravan of cars pulled into my driveway. 20 people in total, including my parents, siblings, their kids, and extended family I barely knew. All loaded with luggage, presents, and ski gear. They rang the doorbell. I didn't answer. They knocked louder. I stayed silent. Finally, Dad called my phone. "Megan, we're all here. Open up." I replied calmly. "I told you repeatedly that I'm not hosting Christmas. You chose not to listen." I hung up and muted my phone. Through the cameras, I watched my family huddled together in the cold. Mom was gesturing wildly, ranting about my behavior. Rachel tried to console her crying kids, and Dave pounded on the door. The doorbell rang continuously for 20 minutes. Then I saw something that made me grab my phone immediately. The kids were making snowballs and throwing them at my windows. I called Rachel. "Tell your kids to stop throwing things at my house right now, they're just playing." She snapped back. "If you'd let us in, we wouldn't have to do that. I have security cameras recording everything." I interrupted. "If they break a window, I'll report the damage to the police." After I hung up, the adults quickly stopped the kids from throwing more snowballs, but the shouting only grew louder. My neighbors noticed the commotion and came over. Through the cameras, I could see my elderly neighbor, Mr. Peterson, talking firmly to my family. A few minutes later, my phone rang again. It was Mr. Peterson. "Megan, your family says you've locked them out. Is everything okay?" he asked. "Yes, Mr. Peterson," I replied. "I repeatedly told them not to come, but they showed up anyway." "I'm not letting them in," Mr. Peterson said slowly. "They're causing quite a disturbance. If they don't quiet down or leave soon, I'll have to call the police." "I understand. Thanks for letting me know." After hanging up, I cranked up the volume on my security system. I could clearly hear Mr. Peterson explaining our conversation to my family over the speakers. "This is private property," he said. "If Megan doesn't want to let you in, that's her right, and you're disturbing the neighborhood. I suggest you all find somewhere else to go before I have to call the police." The look of disbelief on my family's faces was almost comical. They never imagined their plan could fail so completely. After a heated discussion among themselves, they finally began packing their cars. The fallout was swift and dramatic. The next day, Rachel posted a long, tearful video accusing me of abandoning our family at Christmas and leaving the kids out in the cold. My social media exploded with angry comments, from relatives and even old school friends who'd heard the story. I didn't respond or try to explain myself. They'd never bothered to listen before, so why would I start now? Instead, I invited a few close friends over for Christmas dinner. We cooked together, exchanged modest gifts, played board games, and never once mentioned the family drama. It turned out to be the most peaceful, enjoyable Christmas I'd had in years. In the following months, my phone stayed silent. No calls from Mom on my birthday, no texts from my siblings about their kids' activities, no invitations to family gatherings. I was officially the black sheep, the ungrateful daughter who turned her back on family tradition, and honestly, that was exactly what I wanted. Maybe someday they'd realize how taken advantage of I'd felt. Maybe they'd understand that true family respects boundaries and doesn't treat one member like a free hotel. Maybe they'd admit that their behavior was selfish and unfair. But even if that day never comes, I'm okay with it. I finally stood up for myself, and that meant more than any family approval ever could. My house was mine again, my time was mine again, my life was mine again.